me what to do.
Here we go, going live, everybody.
Make all my Lunker Lake dreams come true.
Hello, everybody. Bob Lusk, the Pond Boss, checking in on a real balmy Wednesday evening over here in North Texas. It was 94 degrees this afternoon. Had the chance to go work on a couple of lakes of a longtime client, and it was really fun. They're trophy bass lakes. So I told the girls I thought I'd be talking about trophy bass some tonight. And I see Jason Nepstad. Good to see Jason. John Wilson checking in a little early tonight. Good to see you, John. I think I'm going to talk about raising trophy bass. Well, that'll be a pretty good hit over there in North Carolina. I'm not sure what Ohio is going to be thinking. There's Ron Ardwine. We're going to be talking about raising trophy bass there, Ron. So, hey, you guys know the drill. If you will put in hashtag Pond Boss Magazine in the comment section, click like, and share this to your news feed, you will be eligible for a drawing for a Pond Boss hat. Still waiting on some new Pond Boss mugs, but in the meantime, we got a coffee mug right there. Got the Pond Boss logo on it. 35 bucks a year, folks. Pond Boss Magazine. There's the first commercial of the day. So, hey, glad you guys could join me. Appreciate it. Glad that we could take a little time and hang out. You know, today I got a call. I called a guy yesterday that's a client of mine, and I've probably been working on his lake for 15 years, and he is real passionate, real ardent pond management guy. He loves it. He does it. And he's real picky about following the instructions. So together, he and I work out a game plan each year, and we modify it. We start off with an electrofishing survey each springtime. Last year, we did it on April the 6th. The water was cool. The fish had not spawned yet. Man, we shocked up some beastly bass. You know, the biggest one I think we shocked up was probably 8.5 or 9 pounds last year. We got a 10.2 today and a 9.2. 2 7.5 pounders and a whole bunch of 5 to 6s in a 13-acre lake. So bear with me a minute. I want to be able to see your questions. Good God, I see a lot of folks checking in. Yeah, it was really hot today. It was, but you know, we're going to have a cold front, and they're talking about a dadgum freeze next week, maybe. So bear with me a minute. I'm going to find this, make sure it's live on the Facebook page on my laptop where I can see it better. I broadcast from an iPhone. I don't know how to do it any different. You know, I guess I could do it on my laptop, but then everything would be backwards. I've tried that, and I don't really like it backwards. Okay, so let's see here. Here's the video. There it is. Now I can see who all is joining us. Yep, Dennis Smith. Good to see you, man. Chris Chavetta, good evening. Tim Stewart. Tim, I tried to call you back, man, then my phone started ringing. I only had a cell for about 30 minutes this afternoon on the trip back. Philip Benefield, Shane McIntyre. Yep, yeah, it's my face is red. Debbie went with me today. So here's what we did. I was talking to this client earlier in the week, and I said, hey, you know, we're going to have several really good days. Let's see if we can slip over there with the electrofishing boat and do a survey and take a look at your lake and make sure those fish are growing like they should be. And he said, well, I can't get over there. And so he called me back. He said, you know what? I've been thinking about this. We're sheltering in place. The whole thing is to keep social distance. That'll be a new word in the dictionary this year. And he said, why don't you just go ahead and go do it? And I thought, well, hell, I can't go shock a lake by myself. So it dawned on me, my wife, the queen, Debbie, has been holed up at home with 2 grandkids, Nolan and Gentry. Nolan's 15, Gentry's 11, for 3 weeks. Debbie hadn't been off the property in 3 weeks. So we all piled into the truck and hooked onto the electrofishing boat, and we headed over to west of Jacksboro, Texas, to work on a couple of ponds and lakes over there. A 3-acre pond and about a 13, 14-acre lake. And it's just a joy because the guy that owns that place, he is immaculate. He keeps it beautiful. It's high fenced. He loves to grow his own deer, you know, and use it for family and friends and things like that. And so we've been managing for trophy bass over there for at least the last 8 or 9 years. Before that, we tried to position it to be ready to be managed for trophy bass. This is probably the 15th year that we've worked on these lakes, and I've had a hand in it. So I'll tell you a little bit about what we found here in a minute. Let me see who all's checking in. David Reichs is checking in. I know you can't be hanging out with John Wilson. At least you better not be. You boys are going to get in trouble if you do. Good to see you, man. Chris, you and I, we'll catch up. Chris is working on a project over near St. Louis. Chris Chavette is an astonishing guy. Good gosh, the guy's brilliant. He's an engineer by training and an architect by career, and owns property at Innsbruck, west of St. Louis, and he lives on a beautiful lake that's in excess of 250 acres. And he's the fishing club president, which means he doesn't tell everybody what they can catch. It means that he does the best job he can do to grow the fish that everybody catches. And Chris is a real passionate pondmeister himself. I'm glad he's here. Let's see here. Brantley Rex, are you on board, buddy? Holy cow, Brantley. We need to hang out one of these days. Get your dad to bring you down here and let's go fishing. I'd love to go do that. There's Bear Brundrett. Bear, I guess we need to talk about that event you and I've got coming up with the church. So I'm not quite sure what's going to happen with that. Philip Benefield says, if it works, leave it alone. I believe that. I believe that like I believe in having a glass of wine at this party. Debbie bought me some wine. She doesn't know it. So let's see here. Harrison Davis, good to see you, Pond Boss. Glad you're doing well. Yeah, we're doing pretty good, pretty well. Hope things are good in Georgia. Chuck Brinkman, got it going on over there. It's a good time to be stuck at home when the fish are biting. Yeah, he's over there west of St. Louis. Yep, Philip Benefield is checking in. Oh, we've got conversations going on already. Yep, Jim Liner's checking in. Hey, this Rick Best, a longtime friend from over at Laurel Hill, North Carolina, and then that area. Drew Bachman. Hey man, I really appreciate the testimony there. $35. $35 a year for a Pond Boss Magazine subscription. That, you know what? While we're talking about that, here's the resources that Pond Boss provides for you. For $35 a year, you got the magazine that comes out. That's what fuels the economy, so I can do things like this show and having sponsorships. You know, with Carina Mills, Texas Hunter Feeders, folks like that. Pontini pontoon boats, folks like that help fuel the economy. But we also have the pondboss.com website page, which has got a really active discussion forum on it. Of course, our Facebook page is fairly active. I'm going to post some pictures of the bass some of the bass that we shocked up today. I didn't take a whole lot of pictures because I was busy weighing and measuring fish with grandchildren and wife, so it was a big deal to me to get them processed, when I say processed, I mean weighed and measured and get back into the lake. And the water temperature, by the way, was 76 degrees. That's warm for this time of year. Those bass had already spawned once. We shocked up some baby bass, 4 to 5 inches long, a bunch of 5-inch largemouth bass, about that big, and a bunch of them had Florida markings on them. So that's pretty dadgum cool. It's really, really cool. They spawned a month ago, which is way early in our part of the country. There's John Funk checking in from mid-Michigan. Leanne's checking in. Let's see, Drew Bachman, he's over there, North Carolina border, South Carolina. Let's see here, Latham Powell. Howdy from Dallas, Latham. Good to see you. There's Jim Morgan. Hey, Jim Morgan, Rick Best is watching with us. You guys are buddies. Justin Ludwig, hey Bob, the best place to get tilapia near Oklahoma City. Send me a private message or email me. Tell you what, email me at boblusk@Oklahoma. Woo! I'm off in left field. boblusk@outlook.com, and I'll get you some tilapia references because I know that American Sport Fish is going to be hauling some up there. There may be some other guys. All right. Latham is about to subscribe, and he is going to stock some F1 Tiger bass. That's good. I hope you've been talking to those guys about those. Latham, if you need some help to talk about, stocking F1 Tiger bass and how to manage the pond, holler at me, man. I'll help you or refer you. Let's see. Philip Benefield. Bob, I've been asked about cows before. I have pasture leased where my pond is. Will cows in the pond destroy any spawning possibilities? No, they won't destroy the spawning opportunities, but what they will do is destroy the shoreline. They'll add a lot of hot nutrient load to the water with their waste. So if there's a way to fence them off the pond and let them access just a place where they can drink, or better yet, what a lot of guys have started doing over the last 20 years is putting in a watering trough below the pond with a siphon that goes into that concrete trough or metal trough with a float in it. So when the water level drops, it siphons water from the pond. So there's ways to do that. Michael Leary, good to see you. Philip Benefield says, how old is a 5-inch bass? If that bass is in New York, it's probably 1.5 years, 2 years old. If he lives right here in Texas at this moment, it's 4 weeks old. So what happened today was I took the fam. We left our quarantine situation. Don't tell anybody that. But we all sheltered in place in the truck, hooked on the electrofishing boat by ourselves, packed a picnic lunch, and we headed over and worked on 2 lakes. And what happened when I started electrofishing the first lake with the fam, Debbie and 2 grandkids, we shocked up probably 25 bass in 30 minutes of electrofishing, which is pretty good catch rates. That's on a 3-acre pond. And those fish, the relative weights were about 90 to 95%, and you could look at them and tell the girls' tummies were a little bit flaccid. They were just a little soft, which means they have spawned. And the evidence also suggested, because we shocked up a bunch of 4 to 4.5 to 5-inch long bass, about that big. A lot of those. That's this year's spawn. That had to have happened a month ago in the full moon. So those bass are 30 days old. So what that means is the water temperature was warm enough that those bass could spawn. They hatched fast and they're growing like hotcakes. Now what it means is it was a small spawn. If it was a big spawn, then we would have shocked up a lot more baby bass and they would have been smaller. But that pond is also just slightly crowded with big bluegills and a few intermediate-sized bass that could also thin the numbers of baby bass down. We didn't see any baby bass. When I say baby, I mean tiny little bitty fish that are newly hatched. Those fish were at least a month old. So in Texas, with these circumstances, with 76-degree water, bluegill spawning too, because we saw several beds of bluegill that were in the midst of spawning, baby bluegill coming off feeding those bass, it makes sense that there's some 4 to 5-inch baby bass here that are a month old. And that's pretty fast growth. That means they'll be 6 to 8 inches long in another 3 to 4 weeks. They'll be 11 to 12 inches long by fall. Some of them could be 3/4 to a pound by fall. The best of those could be bigger, but they're in a lake that's a little bit crowded with bass. On the bigger lake, the 13, 14 acre lake, we shocked up a bunch. I haven't been able to process the numbers yet, but we shocked up, I'm going to tell you, we probably weighed and measured 50 bass in an hour on the pedal. And the majority of those bass, the relative weights were 90 to 110. So there were several bass. I'll tell you what happened. I can see what happened. The biggest bass spawned a month ago. Those bass that are probably 6 to 12 pounds, they spawned their first go-round a month ago. Now, the next size down female bass, they haven't spawned yet. They're getting ready right now. Matter of fact, they're spawning now. The 10.2 pound bass we shocked up was with a 2-pound female. The 9 pound 2 ounce bass that we shocked up was with an 18-inch male that was about 3 pounds. That's a big male. And there was a pair. So we shocked up like 5 pairs of bass today. So we pulled them off the spawning beds, took them out long enough to weigh them and measure them, and then let them go back to their business. So what we're seeing is the second spawn. And the second spawn includes, the first spawn included the biggest female bass. And if you think about it, that makes sense because the biggest females are going to have the most eggs. They're going to get ripe early, and they're going to spawn some of their eggs early, but not all their eggs get ripe at the same time. So what happens when we get to the next, they spawn in phases of the full moon. That's real important for you to know. So now we're in another phase of the full moon, so they're spawning again. So now we got 2 different sizes, maybe 3 different size classes of bass that are reproducing at this moment. And that's happening around the nation, by the way. You know, if your water temperature is in the 60s or 70s, your bass are spawning going on right now. And so we saw that today because we shocked up those different pairs of bass with a male and a female in the same spot. I mean, when the boat went over them, here they come. You know, there's a big bass, big female. that 10 pound, 2 ounce bass, she probably weighed knocking on the door of 12 pounds a month ago. But you could tell by looking at her that even though she wasn't just full of eggs, she had some eggs in her. She's spawning with another male. So there you go. That's kind of how that works. I see Fred Bingaman checking in. Keith Mowdy, hey man, good to see you, buddy. John Funk says, strange weather, nearly 70 today and low 40s for the highs tomorrow. Big thunderstorm a lot. Yeah, I saw the pictures. I was out in the truck most of the day, or shocking the lake. I saw the pictures that you posted on Pond Boss of the hail. Let's see here. Chuck Brinkman, I wonder if I have the girls watch this, if it can go towards their homeschool science class. Absolutely. Hey, if their teacher has a problem with it, have her call me. Because we were talking about reproduction. That's about... Okay, let me back up. Hey, Chuck, we're talking about spawning bass. We're talking about habitat. We're talking about fishery science. We're talking about ecosystems. So you bet. They can sure do that. I spent an hour yesterday with Mark Cornwell. We did a 1 hour kind of a wrap-it-up senior class, fisheries class at SUNY Cobleskill on Zoom last night. That was pretty fun. Let's see here. Jim Morgan, remember your book, Raising Trophy Bass? It's what sent Dave out to Bass 101 to see you, and the rest they say is, hey, Pond Boss hat, coffee mug, $35 a year. If you will, hashtag Pond Boss Magazine, click like, share this to your newsfeed, this video. You're eligible for a drawing for that stuff. And what Jim Morgan's talking about, I did write a book back in 1993 about raising trophy bass. His property manager found it, and that made him come to a seminar where I was speaking, and that launched a relationship. So this kind of stuff, I love it. This is just so much fun. Sean Cole. Sean, man, I wish I could get you on there where you could play a tune. Sean is an outstanding musician, singer, songwriter from Lincoln, Nebraska. And, you know, when you, and I noticed I haven't been able to watch him, but I noticed that Sean is doing some Facebook recordings of his music to share that with folks that are kind of holed up. JJ Landanger in southern Nebraska, is now a good time to spray vegetation and algae that's starting to grow. Also was planning on die after spring. You know what? That would be a good time. Sure would. Sure would. Now, let me tell you about this, about aquatic plants. You really want to, you have to find out what it is. You got to identify the plants. If you can't identify them, then odds are not good that you're going to be able to spray them. The two lakes that we did today, the 3-acre pond and then 13, 14-acre lake, the 3-acre pond, it's on its way to having a vegetation problem. Bushy pondweed was growing up in sprigs over probably 35% of that pond. And the water was crystal clear all the way down to 8 feet. That's too clear. So what we're probably going to do there is take out some of that pondweed with spot treatment, look to see if the pond will fertilize the grain fertility on its own. The big lake had sprigs of grass, but there was so much rain that flushed through that thing over the weekend and the last 3 weeks that the water's kind of turbid and is creating its own bloom. There's Betty Reich. I went to high school with Betty Reich. Mike Rosa, hey there, Bob. Opinion on mean mouth. You know what? Mean mouth is largemouth by cross with smallmouth. I think those are pretty cool fish. I think they're a specialty fish that are fun to catch. They're not going to really get huge, but they're aggressive biters. The downside is nobody raises them on purpose, so there's not really a source. The only times I ever encounter mean mouth bass is in nature, in private waters where they crossed because their spawning seasons have overlapped enough. And it's 99 times out of 100, it's when a male smallmouth is tending a nest, has already gotten some smallmouth eggs in it, and a largemouth swims by and says, hey, you know what? I like you. I think I'm going to put some of my eggs in your nest. And then he fertilizes those eggs. That's about the only time I ever see them. The only other way that they ever happen is in a laboratory cross where largemouth bass largemouth bass eggs are collected and fertilized with milk from a smallmouth bass. And that's the only time, and that doesn't happen. There's not many hatcheries that do that, but I kind of like them. Let's see here. Tammy Pisarski's checking in from Lubbock. You know, Tammy, I got to talk to Patty the other night, and they were at the ranch. I hope you guys are getting to enjoy that a little bit. Harrison Davis, y'all wore respirator masks and thick gloves, right? No, we didn't. We've been holed up together now for 3 weeks. I've been out 2 times to buy groceries and 2 times to do consultations where I've kept my distance from people. So no, we didn't wear any masks. Probably should have done that tonight with you guys, but I'm not going to do it. Barry Gann, hey Barry, good to see you, man. Bill Russell checking in from South Alabama. There's Kevin Briggs checking in from Carolina. Christy Hartzell, she's checking in from Whitesboro. Mike DeMint, I see him from Memphis, Tennessee. Ron, how could you tell it was a 3-pound male? We weighed it. We weighed every one of those fish. And that 18-inch long male, which was really interesting, I didn't want to take pictures of all these fish. If I'd had somebody helping me that had handled fishing before, I would have taken more pictures. But that 3-pound male was beaten up. And matter of fact, when we shocked up that pair of fish. So that 3-pound male was with a 9-pound, 2-ounce female. And when the kids picked him up in the net, I saw that he had bruises on both sides. I didn't know how much he weighed at that point. But when we put him in the live well, we have a recirculating live well, and it was time to measure those fish and weigh them. I picked it up, and I knew that was the fish that we'd shocked up because we only shocked like 50 fish. So I could tell it. So anyway, I just read Ron's next comment. Do females compete for beds? Actually, they do. So anyway, to tell you the rest of the story is when we weighed that fish, I was surprised. There's not many males that weigh 3 pounds. But in that lake there is. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the management of that lake here in a minute after I get through scrolling through some of these questions. Harrison Davis, why do largemouth bass like to spawn during full moons? I don't know. I guess because I do. You know what? I don't know. I really don't know. I think that's nature's way. I've studied this stuff for a long time. This is my 41st year as a fisheries biologist, which I just think is hilarious. I don't really know. I don't know why. I don't know why that happens. I don't know why they spawn during full moons. But I know this, that I have watched fish for a long, long time, and different fish spawn in different cycles of the full moon. And largemouth bass, they spawn when it's full. Bluegill don't always spawn in full moon cycles. They'll spawn in different cycles. Red ear do too. So I don't know why they do that. Do females compete for beds? Let me tell you exactly what happens. A male builds a bed. So that one male is going to guard that bed. And then the females are giving off some kind of a scent or a pheromone when they're ripe and their eggs are ready to go. And as they approach the bed, a male, and I've watched this over and over and over, it's pretty fascinating, he'll go get that female and he'll nudge her and guide her to that bed, and then she'll turn sideways as he bumps her. She'll spill some eggs into the nest and he'll fertilize them. And then when she's done, when she spawned all she's going to spawn, she'll go. And if there's more room in the nest, he'll guard those eggs after he fertilizes them. And he'll fertilize them as they're coming out. He'll squirt his milk, and then when they fall he'll guide them into the bottom of the nest, which looks like a crater, like a big, like the disc on a farm plow, a disc. So it's disc-shaped, 18 inches in diameter. He'll guide them to the bottom. It's almost always rocky substrate. And so he'll guide those eggs into the bottom of the bed. And then if there's another female that's close, he'll go get her and she'll spawn in this bed while the other one takes off. And if she's got more eggs that are viable, she'll go to another bed and lay her eggs in that next bed with that next guy. So they're all switching up and changing out. And that's part of the way that nature allows us to have a mixed gene pool. So it minimizes inbreeding. And that's pretty dadgum fun. There's Jeff checking in from Tucson, Arizona. I see Ann Kanya checking in from Shepherd, Montana. All right, Chris Horsley. I don't have any electricity in my 3.5 acre pond. I was thinking about getting a solar-powered paddle wheel. Well, I think a paddle wheel probably pulls more watts than what is economically feasible. So, but what you can do is you can get a bottom diffused aeration system. If you'll get Pond Boss magazine and read Brian Hoffman's articles, he's done that. check in with Outdoor Water Solutions. There's several of our aeration companies. Go to the pondboss.com, click on the resource guide, and look at aeration systems. I think that a bottom diffused aeration system would be more economically efficient and viable as an aeration system to use solar power if you're going to do that. Let's see here. Holy cow, I'm getting behind. It says there's 43 new comments. Ann says, greetings from Fish Fry Lake. Good to see you, Ann. Hope you're hanging out with your hubby, Bruce. That's Floating Island International, by the way, folks. Ann, Kanya, and Bruce. Bruce is the inventor of floating islands. Fascinating couple. Ann hails from New Zealand. She's a United States citizen, married to Bruce, Kanya now. And those two guys, they're a pair. You know, they love to pheasant hunt together. They have Fish Fry Lake, which is this 6-acre lake that is a huge science experiment. And if you want to know about floating islands, visit with Bruce and Ann. That's good. Lance Frederickson, I see Drew Hay checking in from Pennsylvania. Hey, Drew, good to see you, buddy. Lance Frederickson, hey, Bob, how much of my 1-acre pond bottom should have fish habitat on it? I'm sitting at about 33. Is that not enough? 33 what? 33%? Here's what I'm going to say on a 1-acre pond, on any pond and lake, if you've got somewhere between 20 and 30% of that pond with a variety of habitat, meaning spawning beds, highways, funnels, congregation points, brush piles, big fish structure. If you've got a variety of different types of habitat to create an underwater community, that's enough. And that includes aquatic plants. You know, the lakes I looked at today, I'm going to be picky about what plants we take out and what plants do we leave, because I think some of them are outstanding. And I am going to talk about trophy bass here in a minute, I promise. There's Josie checking in. We ordered the Texas Hunter feeder for my husband. Yep, he's spoiled indeed after the coronavirus. Me and Debbie, you and Debbie are going to meet. Debbie, you know what? If you guys will go to my Facebook page, Bob Lusk Facebook page, the kid's mom came over a couple nights ago, and we enjoyed some time together outside on the deck. And one of the grandkids, Nolan, who's 15, showed Debbie how you put a little dollop of whipped cream on his hand, and he could pop it into the air and then catch it. And you really need to watch Debbie trying to do that. It's hilarious. Go to my face after the show. Go to Debbie's Facebook page. All right, Ron Ardwan. Me and Tim Stewart have met over the phone. I'm trading him some big bluegill for honey. Hey, Tim. Tim's here, man. There's Stormy Lee checking in. I got to talk to Stormy earlier this week. Todd Austin is on board. Let's see here. Matt Marsden with American Fish Tree. Steve Lewis, Fisheries Biologist from Arkansas. Matt Marsden's from Tennessee. Gary Hempel, I got bass that eats chicken fajitas. Well, I'm going to leave that alone. I got something to say, but I'm not going to do it. I like chicken fajitas. I kind of like to know how you train that fish to eat chicken fajitas. Matt Singley, I'm off topic tonight, but I'm wanting to build a small pond, half to 3/4 acre, just to raise big bluegill brim. How deep should I build this pond, and how many spawning gravel beds, and how many bass should I be put in? Okay, so if you're wanting to grow really, really big bluegills, you want to minimize spawning. And what I would do is, if you're going to build a half to 3/4 acre pond, I'll tell you what you should do. Okay, here's how to grow giant bluegills. You got to feed them. Feed them Purina's Aquamax MVP. Then you need to be selective about which ones you keep. So to grow trophy bluegills, you got to minimize reproduction, but you need reproduction to get the best of the best each year, so you're feeding the junior varsity and the freshman team, you know. But if you've got bass that are overcrowded at about 12 inches, they're going to help minimize reproduction, and only the survival of the fittest, the best of the best, are going to grow up. So feed them, overstock 25 or 30 bass in a half-acre pond, 12 inches long, preferably males, so they don't get so big they're eating your best bluegills. And then be prepared. When you build that pond, here's what I'm going to tell you. Build that pond where you can feed the fish, overstock with crowded bass, small bass, but have an area where you can pull about a 50-foot seine, buy a seine from Memphis Net and Twine, and a couple of times a year go in there and do some bluegill culling yourself. Save the best of the best, Cull some bluegills that aren't fitting into your game plan to grow trophy bluegills. We shocked up some 10 and 11-inch bluegills today that look spectacular. And of course, they're egg-laden and they're ready to spawn. Let's see, Dennis Smith, we put an outdoor water solution 60-foot or 16-foot windmill aeration system last summer. Works pretty decent, but it seems nearly impossible to balance both diffusers at the same time. Check in with those guys. Talk to John Red. John will coach you through that. Because if you don't have valves on it, it is kind of tough. And when the wind's blowing hard, something happens. If the wind's not blowing as hard, something else has happened. So I think that's a good idea. Gary Hempel, salutations, oldest, what? Salutations, old, okay. All right. Texas, okay, you know what? I'm going to do the best I can to understand that. Hey, there's Brent checking in from Waxahachie. I've been catching a bunch of 3-inch bass this spring. Will they have been spawned? Yes, absolutely would. We've had, let me see here. My phone is making, if this phone cuts off, if this video cuts off, I'm going to come right back on it. My phone tells me that the iPhone storage is full, so I'm going to have to get rid of something. So is it common? Yes, it is. It's common this year. It's not common every year. So it seems to me that this year we've had a spawn that was earlier than normal. We had a spawn in the first week of March, which is not typical. It's typical for the bass to be spawning now, which they are, but it's the second spawn. All right, so let's talk about trophy bass for a minute. It's 7 o'clock, 7:01, so I do want to do a commercial. Hey, $35 a year, right here. If you haven't, I noticed we had 3 people sign up for subscriptions today, and I think 2 of you guys came from the Pond Boss Facebook page watching this broadcast. $35 a year, full of nuggets. At least that's what I like to call them. You're going to get something out of each issue that you can use managing your lake and pond, your lakes and ponds. If you'll hashtag Pond Boss Magazine, click like. Eligible for a drawing for a Pond Boss hat and a coffee mug. I'm waiting on a shipment. I think Leanne's got some ordered. So we're going to talk about trophy bass. Oh, here's another question. Let's see. Scott Angelico says, my pond is 2 years old. I'm getting a bunch of clams in the pond. Is that good? Absolutely. The pond I worked on today, I noticed the raccoons had busted open a bunch of young ones and had eaten them. Clams, freshwater mussels are astonishing. They're an indication of really good, clean water and a healthy bottom. It's a muddy bottom, but it's healthy. They cleanse it. Freshwater mussels cannot take dirty water. If there's anything that's toxic, any rise and fall of pH, if there's any waste byproducts or something that's causing water to be unhealthy, they can't live there. So I think it's yes, I love freshwater mussels. I think they're outstanding. Jake Carroll, I have a 1.5 acre pond with 2 bottom diffusers. I started the aerator slowly and started feeding in the last 3 weeks. I have noticed mature bluegill dying in what looks like fungi around the lips. You know what? I think you emailed me, or somebody did, with that question. Here's what I'm going to tell you. When a bluegill has a fungus around its lips, oftentimes that happens when they're really, really aggressively feeding on fish food. No, if that's the case, here's what happens. The fungus, which it's called Saprolegnia. There's your big word. There's the big word for the day. You can look that up. Saprolegnia. If you want to look this up, go to University of Google and actually learn about it as much as you can. The thing is that oh, I just got a private message. That's really the third thing that's wrong. The first thing that happens is there's a stressor. And when fish start feeding in the spring, especially in cool water, and they're feeding fairly aggressively, they can get bruised. They bang into each other and they're chasing that feed, and so they can get a bruise. And in cool water, the bruise doesn't heal fast enough. If it doesn't heal fast enough, that's when fungus grows on it. So fungus around the lips suggests to me that your temperature went up, the fish started eating aggressively, then the temperature went down. Then the temperature went up, then it went back down. If that's the case, medicate the fish food. And, it's like a lot of things in nature. The weakest, hardest, oldest fish are the ones that tend to die from that sort of thing. So if you don't have